This is Eastmans Elevated podcast. I have on great guests that are really knowledgeable, consistently successful. We're able to dive deep down the rabbit holes of these different subject matters of shooting, of physical fitness, of mental toughness and drive. All the different skills that make up a complete hunter that you can become.
Here's your host, Brian Barney.
Hey, what's going on, guys? I got a brand new Eastmans Elevated for you. So this week on the podcast, I have back on Mr. Ryan Lampers. So Ryan's just a consistent killer and a great guy. I have really enjoyed getting to know him, and he's just got all the attributes that a backcountry hunter should. You know, he's humble. He works super hard at his goals, and whether that's keeping himself in great physical shape, shooting his equipment, whether it's his rifle or his bow, or map research and going into a new unit and being able to figure it out on the fly and adapt and evolve. But he's just one of the greatest public land hunters out there. I get a ton of motivation from him. I really enjoyed this conversation. The theme for it is adventure hunting, but we're both just getting back from our coues hunts that we did separately and getting back and sharing the stories of them, and we're both just fired up, and I really think that coues deer is one of the coolest, most challenging, funnest hunts that you can do out there. So we get talking about coues deer and our experiences, but there's tons of information in here about spot and stock hunting, about different hunts you can do and just improving and getting better. So I really enjoyed the conversation. I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy it too. Sponsor for today's show is Taito Knives. Taito just makes an ultra sharp, ultra lightweight hunting knife, and these things are just amazing. So it's a replaceable blade knife, and what you can do with these things just amazes me. Like once I got my first Taito, and I could take it out and I could process an entire elk with one knife. All of a sudden, I don't have to bring multiple knives. I don't have to bring sharpeners. One ultra lightweight knife, with a couple blades. And really, I can do an entire elk with two blades. But it's just so nice to be able to swap blades. Like, elk hides are so thick. Being able to cape them or being able to split them when you're skinning and then just go to a brand new fresh blade is just amazing. So these knives are awesome. I don't hunt with anything else. This is what processes 100% of my game animals that I harvest, whether it's mule deer, elk, antelope, axis on Hawaii. Like, this is the knife I take. So they just make an amazing product. Make sure to check them out. They also make a fillet knife too, which is really nice for slicing jerky really thin or processing during the butchering process. Like you just take a sharp knife out of the equation. You always have an ultra sharp knife that you're butchering with or that you're processing with. So make sure to check them out. Thanks to Taito Knives for their support of Eastman's Elevated. Okay, we also have a special offer for Eastman's Elevated. So this is a subscription offer. You can get both magazines, and then you can get our MRS book, which is a $69.99 value. You get all of that for $29.99 a year. It just there's so much great information in there. The MRS book has all of 2018 statistics compiled in one book, and then when you get a subscriptions to Eastman's or Eastman's Bow Hunting Journal, you get the MRS, which is the Members Research section. I always want to say supplement there, but it's just this great section that gives you all this information that tells you, what the best units are and what the best hunts for you are. It shows, success rate. It shows counties that produce big Boone and Crockett, Pope and Young trophies, the best bow hunting write-ups on all these different units. So you can start to build yourself, a state-by-state analysis of tags you want to draw in the future, and then, easy to get over-the-counter tags or low point tags. So it's just a great resource. Make sure to check it out. You can text Elevated 319 to 22828. Again, that's Elevated 319 22828 and receive that special offer. So make sure to check that out. And with that, over there at Eastman's, we're just getting ready. We're going to record a good podcast. It's going to be our 150th episode, so we're working to get all set up so we can get as many Eastmans on the recording as we can and sit down. And the theme of it is going to be oh gosh, I wanted to say Ike had some initials that he DS and that he put for it, but basically just mistakes that you've made in the field, idiot mistakes you've made in the field. So we're all going to share some idiot mistakes we've made, and then it's also legal to throw in some idiot mistakes that you've seen or that you've had buddies make, and so you can tell a story that it was my friend, which is actually you if you want to hide yourself. But it should be a great, fun recording. Those guys are great to get together with. And it just got me thinking of all, some of the stupidest mistakes I've made. And I hate making stupid mistakes. In anything, in life, in hunting, and in driving, whatever I'm doing. Like I try to negate any idiot moves or stupid mistakes, backing boat trailers up or anything like that. You're just always trying to be careful. And in my job in construction, you can't make stupid mistakes or somebody's going to get hurt or you're going to get hurt, And so, a lot of times your safety or your life's on the line, but that's not to say I haven't made a few over the years. So we're going to share a couple of these stories. I made this one this time. Well, I should save it for the podcast, but I'll share this one because I've got enough of them. I went duck hunting, loaded my dog up, and left my shotgun sitting against my tire and drove off without it. And I didn't realize I didn't have my shotgun until the next day when I went to go duck hunting, and it wasn't there in my truck where I always throw it. And this has been quite a few years ago, but yeah, I actually set my gun against my tire, drove off, and left it there, and somebody grabbed it from the fishing access site and never turned it in. I looked in the police records, but what an idiot. It's just like every once in a while you just make one of those mistakes. You just think, what was I thinking? And so the defense of myself is that, I was loading up my dog and I was throwing the decoys up and worried about getting my dog in the truck. It was an icy cold day. So that's my excuse, is that I was worried about everything else, pulling my waders off and jacket. But there's no excuse for leaving your shotgun, that's for sure. So look forward to that podcast, 150th episode, and we're going to share some great stories about embarrassing stuff that we've done or that our buddies have done or even that we've seen in the field. So it should be a fun one. And with that, let's get this thing rolling. So really fun podcast with Mr. Ryan Lampers, Eastmans Elevated. Here we go. So we thought we'd get together and talk coues deer, and I really wanted to save the content for the podcast, but both me and you were so excited we couldn't help but start talking upstairs, but we finally hit the record button.
I know. No sooner did I step in the door here, and it went straight to coues deer hunt. How it went, and like all the exciting things that we had happen, it's almost impossible not to, because you and I are a lot alike. I mean, we both have these hunts just mean so much, and they're just so exciting, and especially this one because it was new for me. But no, definitely. No, glad to be down here again. It's going to be nice living this close to you, Brian, because I think we'll get a lot of podcasting in.
Yeah, it's going to be really nice. A lot of podcasting, running,
hopefully
hunting. Those
running.
Critters are in trouble.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
No, I love this valley. It's just a phenomenal place. I mean, shoot, I was pulling into your driveway here, and I think I saw, I don't know, was there about a dozen muleys right across the field from you? It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I just love living in the mountains and with a view. Yep. I think there's something to it. I think it really helps your mood. It helps you let things go. You're not in traffic all the time. And everywhere you look is like a painting around here, whether it's Three Fourths or Ennis or Bozeman.
That's so funny you say that. This morning on my drive, every morning I drive my daughter to school. So I go from Three Forks to Bozeman. And this morning I told my daughter, I said, man, it's like we're driving into a painting, isn't it, Bailey? Because every morning where I'm heading to Bozeman, that's the sunset. Or the sunrise is right there. So you got this big orange pink sky. Yeah, I've noticed in myself, my wife's made comments as well, just more relaxed, more at peace, and it's just a great place to live, man. I just love this. I love this valley. I love where we're at, and it's just a better way of life for me, for us. So now my family's digging it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, it's it gives you some good perspective too when you live in other places and you've dealt with the traffic. But yeah, it seems like it's a breath of fresh air. You know, you get here, the traffic slows down.
Yep.
You know, really nice people, nice community, everybody's visiting. Like, I just like the feel of it.
Yep.
And yeah, it's something to wake up every day and appreciate where you're at and your surroundings. And you know, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, even if I'm working hard outside in the cold. Like, I've got a view in my office every single day.
Oh, you live in an amazing place here too. Yeah, in fact, last time I was here, I took a photo because I could see your house and I could see the mountains in the backdrop. I mean, it's just incredible. Mm-hmm. So literally living the dream out here in Montana right now.
Yeah, it's a cool spot. Well, yeah, thanks for running down tonight. I'm just, I'm so glad that you fell in love with the coues deer adventure like I did. It's such a great opportunity for blue-collar bow hunters to improve their skills and have a true adventure in the desert. And it's fairly easy to find populations. I mean, they're one of the toughest deer to hunt in North America with a bow. But we get to hunt the best units in the best seasons. I mean, aren't those things fun?
Man, I think the first thing I said when I came in is I'm addicted. It's like, and I've done it once. I've only done it once. No, so glad I got down there. And you're right. It really felt like, after seeing how these deer act and where they're at, it really felt like this is like the pinnacle of challenges. Like, I don't think it could get any tougher chasing these guys down with a bow. And in such a, you know, a unique place and such a great state down there. But no, been wanting to do that hunt. I've heard guys like you talk about this hunt. I've heard Randy talk about this hunt down there, and it's just like, it doesn't really set in until you get down there and you see it for yourself. You know, I guess it's just one of those things. I was never like crazy excited about coues deer. I've never been a whitetail guy like you. I've been a mule deer chaser forever. But then you get down there and it's like, holy smokes. I mean, it's, for a bow hunter, it really is, it's like the cream of the crop, because you really have to do every single stinking thing right, or you're not coming back with a buck in the back of your truck. So, no, I really enjoyed myself down there. In fact, people are probably getting tired of hearing me talk about coues deer, even on the podcast.
That's me. It's an influx of coues deer information about every January, February when I get back, because I'm so hooked on it down there.
No, you have to be. And it's funny because, you know, something I noticed the other day is, you know, I just had this we had this long drawn out fall season where we hunted hard, you know, from August through November. And I had all these mule deer hunts that were great, you know, Nevada and Colorado, and there's such awesome hunts, such great places that, you know, the places that mule deer take you. And mule deer has always been my number one. I mean, ever since I can remember, I've always liked mule deer. I know a lot of people like elk, a lot of people love whitetail, always mule deer. But I find myself right now, I'm thinking about these coues. Obviously, it's fresh on my brain. But I feel like, I think before I felt like mule deer, like real large, mature mule deer bucks, was the pinnacle for me. Like, if I could arrow a big, you know, fully mature mule deer buck, that's like the cream of the crop. That's like it. That's the dream. Now I'm seeing these tiny little stunted whitetail down in the desert, and, you know, after seeing how they act and figuring it out, man, this may be the pinnacle, because it's a little bit different country, but as a bow hunter, and if you're really into the challenge of a hunt, I don't see how it can get any tougher. There's things I haven't hunted, obviously, probably quite a few things, but at this point in my life, those things are they're just so sketchy and turned on, and whatever words you want to throw, you have to do every single thing right to be successful. And, you know, this year I feel like I feel a little guilty because I arrowed my buck so fast. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm predicting years of probably frustration at this point, from this point on. So,
well, you're really good at seizing opportunities, and you got the perfect opportunity on that coues deer. So we can get into it and tell the story. But like, my buddy that Miguel that's hunted him down there his whole entire life, and I made friends with him last year, and then I hooked up with him a day hunting this year. But he says like the rut is the blessing and the curse with coues deer. They rut more aggressive than any deer I've ever seen in my entire life. When they're rutting a doe, they chase her miles.
Yeah.
Like there was one day I saw 13 bucks and didn't get a stalk because every time you see them, they're running a doe and you just can't catch up to them. I'd go look for them where they disappeared or where they went over, or try to capture the right vantage points, but they rut extremely hard, and so they're always moving.
Yeah.
So the opportunity that you're looking for is when they get a hot doe and the hot doe gets tired, the hot doe beds down, and then that buck has to protect her from other satellite bucks around there. And so then he actually holds still for a little bit and you get an opportunity to move in. But you're so good. You've been bow hunting for so long now that you know what you can get away with and what you can't. And so you got close and then let it all kind of progress and let it kind of come to fruition and come together. It's really cool, your story. I'll let you tell it. But, man, it's just awesome. I just think you're so good at capitalizing on opportunities.
Yeah, well, when you think about you're presented a situation, and even prior to me going down there, I've heard about these coues and how people hunt them, and I've heard what everybody talks about is you see one, and even if you see him bed down, by the time you get there, you're going to have a hard time relocating him, first off. Everything looks the same. But most likely he's probably going to have moved on. If they're rutting hard, they're not going to be there anyway by the time you get there. But yeah, the classic situation happened to me on that, and that was, hot doe. You just can't beat that scenario. Plus wind, that made for the perfect amount of noise. It made for a directional that I didn't have to worry about, blowing any of the other group out. There was a bunch of deer in this little spot.
So you found like a pocket of deer, and there was a hot doe in there, and this buck that you ended up killing, which was a really nice coues, a world class. So he was rutting that doe hard, right?
So crazy story. So I first day we got down there, I was hunting down there with David Brinker and Brian Call, and there's a whole other big group of fellas back at the Airbnb that we were staying at. But we all just happened to get together and go this one morning, first morning. Spotted a buck, spotted a Quadra, and we kind of split up. I went off by myself. I was looking for this coati, ended up on this just picture perfect glass and knob. Those guys had seen a buck. They were going after it. I located a buck that was a long ways away. Couldn't tell exactly how big he was, but I could tell it looked like a pretty good buck. Again, I'm so uneducated on these coues deer. They're just so tiny compared to when you see a mature mule deer. But I made the hike. I don't know, it was maybe 1.5 miles or something like that, a roundabout way, and got to a spot where I could just kind of sit back and watch and see if I could relocate this sucker. And lo and behold, it took me a while, but I found him. There was a group of deer bedded down on the very bottom of this valley. And it was a really steep draw, quite a few rocks. It wasn't those type areas where there's a lot of yellow grass or anything like that, where it's a little more gentle. This was a pretty steep, rugged, almost kind of reminded you of a mule deer spot. Well, I relocated that buck. He was bedded down under this big old dead tree, and I could see the main trail going down and out of there, and I ended up making a play on that buck that night. Got down to within 105 yards, and couldn't get any closer. Hoping that he would actually cut down valley and give me a pretty good shot. I'd get about a 35-yard shot if he came down. But that was kind of my strategy going into this, because it was dead quiet. Everything was dry. Everything is noisy. It's hard to be as quiet as you can be up on a mule deer hill, right? But they ended up, long story short, going up opposite of me and feeding away, and he chased that doe, and I think there was like 4 or 5 does. But so I didn't get a play. But that night, I was convinced that at that point I knew he was a really phenomenal buck. just from the photos I've seen and whatever. But I told the guys that night, that's the buck I want to go for. I'm going to go back and I'm going to spend however many days it takes to try to hunt that buck. Hoping that doe would stay in there and one of those does and he wouldn't move off too far. I don't know, me not being as educated on these little coues, I just figured there was a handful of does. He's probably going to stay in this little draw. Now it could have went completely opposite. He could have buggered out once that, he bred that doe and got out of there. I don't know. But next day I got in there and they had moved quite a ways up drainage. But same glassing spot. Ended up, when I relocated him, ended up watching him come down to another buck, smaller buck we called Gimpy. It looked like he broke his back right leg. And it's interesting because I watched those things for probably 2 hours that morning. And they just, they weren't bedding up. It was like a rut frenzy down there, just going nuts, chasing the doe around. Other does getting out of the way, and he just wouldn't leave her alone. But a few things that I was picking up on is just how cagey, because I could tell he was old and mature at that point. But man, it seemed like, so the doe would kind of stay out in kind of more of an open area and feed. But when he stopped, he'd stop in the oak brush. And he wouldn't move. I mean, he just dead still, almost like a statue. And it wasn't until that doe either got a little bit out of sight or flicked her tail or started to move a little bit that he would actually make a flinch and move. So, because I know he's there, I'm just keeping my eyeballs focused right on to where he is. But I could have easily seen just coming up to that spot at any one of those times where he was frozen and just not picking him up. They blend in so well, especially in that oak brush. I mean, they just, if the shade's not perfect or, the lighting or whatever, they just blend in. And you'll find yourself running your glass across and not picking up a deer and then running it back across and you see like a flick of a tail or whatever, an ear. And you're like, man, I just looked across that. How did I not see that before? But man, they are just really, really difficult to pick up. So long story short, I ended up watching that buck for hours that morning. He ended up chasing that other buck away. I watched him breed that doe, which is pretty cool. And then they kind of went up and over this little hump and bedded up in this little sliver of oak brush. So what I did, and the wind was just perfect. It started that morning, a good directional, kind of a southwest wind. And I thought, man, I mean, the way that they were feeding, the way that they were moving, just kind of looking at the terrain from where I was, I picked up a spot that it looked like I could probably get to where I'd get in close. My strategy being the whole time, get close enough to where you don't blow it, and let them make the mistake. Let them come to you. I just could not figure out a way that I was going to get in tight enough in that little spot and be quiet enough with that many does and eyeballs and just how twitchy they were. So, kind of sitting back, looking at the spot. I backed off that knob. I ended up getting in my truck, which is probably a quarter mile back, drove around and took a really, really long roundabout way to get down there, hoping that buck was still going to be in that valley. And so by the time I ended up getting back, it was later in the day, relocated what I thought was the same buck, but it happened to be another good-sized buck. So there was, 3 or 4 other bucks running around. Does you kind of watch how those deer act, and it's funny, they'll stay still, and then they'll sprint like 50 yards, and they'll do like a little rodeo, like giddy up, and it's just fun to watch. And that buck will sometimes just stand there and watch them until they stop, and then he'll, bird dog them. And so I got a bird's eye view just watching this whole thing pan out. Little bucks getting chased off, the big buck just going crazy and then just staying statued at times. And so by the time I got to this, there was this one big tree up on the hill, and I got behind that. I could have a really good view of everything at that point. There was a little a little valley. It's kind of a rock valley that kind of cut down into the main drainage of where they were. Well, they were on the opposite drainage at that point. But assuming that those deer were going to keep kind of continuing to feed that direction, they were going to go up this little cut. Well, the valley just to my left intersected that cut. It probably, I don't know, it's about 100 yards for me to get down to that cut. And so my best play at that point with the directional coming in my face was get down there, you know, as slow as possible. You know, you got your bow on your legs. You're just inching your way as slow as possible. Getting into that cut. And once I got into that cut, I could actually move and get a little closer to where it intersected. And so I got down there and I could, you know, you hate to peer over rocks and kind of, you know, reassess the situation, but you have to, right? You have to look. And so once I got down in there, you know, I did just that. I'd get to the spot, and I got to where I was 26 yards from the opposite side of that other wall, basically. So the drainage that they were going to assumedly they'd come up. And so I knew it would be a top pin type shot if they were walking the main little trail that came up that. So, you know, down when you're that tight, it could happen so dang fast. I had a doe just blast by me at one point. I didn't know if it was the doe. It wasn't the doe. I had another couple little bucks racing around, and if you watch those things, like I said, they just, at times they just race away, or they'll run 200 yards in a big circle and end up right where they were.
A lot of times they never offer a shot.
No,
They just move it.
They just
so much.
keep moving.
Yeah.
So I, you know, I had all the luck in the world with me that day, obviously, because it's probably 3:30 in the afternoon, and I've been watching these deer all day long. And at this point, I still assume that the big buck that I'm looking at, I'm not looking at him too close during that whole stock. I'm just assuming that's the buck I watched all morning long. Mm-hmm. Big buck, same spot, same other cluster of deer. And then when I got in, I was about 80 yards from kind of where most of the action was going on, and his doe was. And then, you know, you throw the glass up, and it's like, dang, but this rack looks a little bit different. Like, it's a little more curled in at the front. It's got a fourth tine on it. It's like, that buck wasn't a 4 on that side. And so I'm trying to do the math. Like, what happened here? Like, how did I miss? Well, I guess when I had relocated, this buck had moved in. Another mature buck had moved in. And whether that other buck that I'd watched all morning got booted out, or he just picked up a hot doe and he just took off, and then this buck picked up another hot doe, I have no idea. But it was like the perfect situation. I mean, that's what you dream about, something like that. Because no sooner, I mean, I got down to that spot, and it wasn't but a couple minutes, and that doe sprinted up that draw, the draw that I was in the little intersection draw to that main draw. And that doe sprinted past me. And, you know, I'd done every calculation in my head at this point. I think, you know, you just think of every little thing that you don't want to screw up. You think about your shot. You think about your yardage. You think about everything, not making a mistake at that point. So the one thing that I had heard many people talk about is how they can matrix your arrow, right? They're just that fast, like a lot of whitetail if they're on to you, or like axis deer, like mm-hmm. You've chased the axis deer. You know, I've heard people say shoot a little low, just because, you know, that first initial jump at the sound of the bow going off, they'll duck down a little bit, and that's kind of where you want to put it a little low. Well, I was pretty dang close at that point. Like I said, it was a top pin shot. So I knew in my head, I was just thinking, all right, I got to stop him, but I also got to have that arrow releasing at the exact moment that I stopped this buck. So, you know, that's just what was going through my head. Everything from holding the bow to making the shot, you know, count. So, you know, that doe sprinted past me, and then what I've got is a rock wall on my right in this little cut. It's probably like a 7-foot cut. So I'm squatted down, and And sure enough, I know that buck's coming because this is the doe. And so I've got one little tree in front of me. There's like a 2-foot gap between where I first see him, this little tree. I draw back actually before he hit that tree, and he's going pretty fast, and stopped him, with just a little mouth noise, and basically let that thing fly at the same time. And it could not have worked out any more perfect. I mean, 18-yard shot. He spun, he took off down, and I sat down at that point. I didn't even want to look and see, down the draw. And, at that point I started talking into my phone, telling the story. But that's how it worked out. And I gave it some time. I didn't need to. I could see my arrow clean pass through, and it had stuck in on the other side in some yellow grass. So I finally gave it some time and kind of recorded everything and how it worked out. And then so I went over there and found the bloody arrow, and you could look down 30 yards down this little cut in the flat of this draw and see that buck piled up down there. So that was just a huge sigh of holy. Well, first it's like right after I released that arrow, you just can't believe that just happened on a coues deer. I put these things up with like one of the hardest critters from what I've heard, and it just happened. Second day.
Well, and you can't you can't make it happen on the last day always, Ryan. Like sometimes it happens quicker than that. But no, it's just an opportunity where you caught that buck and you caught hot doe in that drainage, and then capitalized, made the right moves. You never they were never aware of your presence as you kept stealthy as you were moving in and as you were observing them and making a good game plan, got the wind right, and you just made the right moves, and it came together and capitalized on the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And prior to that, I had a couple experiences getting in close to deer, not on stocks, but some does. And they pick up everything. Every single movement, they're on you, and they will stay on you. I don't know if they'll stay on you longer than a mule deer, but they'll stand frozen waiting for you to make a move forever.
In any flinch, and they're gone.
Yeah.
They react really quick.
And I'm assuming that has to do with just the country they're in, the amount of predators they have down there. Cats are after them all the time.
I've watched a mountain lion. Well, I didn't watch it actually kill a deer last year, but it had the deer dead, and then I watched it drag it all the way across a hillside, a mountain lion, sitting from my vantage point. So, those mountain lions, they wreak havoc on them. And actually, there's been a few documented cases of jaguars that come up that have been in the U.S., that have been photographed in some of those southern mountain ranges. So if you can imagine a 250-pound spotted cat hunting those things, so they're really switched on to the predators.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah, it seems like every noise, everything you do, they're on to you.
They're on you, yep.
And so it's, they're just fun animal to hunt.
Well, and they blend in so well. Like you tell people that they blend in, but they're one of the toughest animals. They are the toughest animal that I've ever had to glass for. When they hold still, they can be in the wide open 200 yards away from you, and you don't see them. Or like you say, in that oak brush or the ocotillos or a little bit of shadows. But their whole coat is this camouflage, and so they're called the gray ghost, and for a reason. They live up to the reputation. You take your eyes off them for a second, and sometimes you can't find them or can't even tell your buddy where they're at. They're just amazing.
Oh, man,
that way.
You learn that very, very quickly. Whether it's trying to show another guy oh, I see a buck, and then you tell him, and then you get off the glass and you're like, dang it, where is he? You figure out pretty dang fast that you just don't come off of that glass.
I kicked myself the one time I saw a good buck and I saw him headed in there, and whoever was with me, maybe it was Logan or I had Coulter drove down, another buddy of mine that hunted with me for a day or so, but I just told him where it was and tried to get the scope on him. I knew the exact spot, and I lost him. He was gone. I was so mad at myself for taking my eyes off him, and I finally picked him up again. You just don't get frustrated and keep staring around at those spots, but it's amazing how quick they can disappear on you. A lot of times you think you have them pinned down in a timber patch, and you never saw the doe, you never saw the buck leave. They're right in this patch of cover. And you go there and they disappear on you. They sneak out. Or you'll even have a buddy that sits on the vantage point, keeps his eyes on that exact spot as you stalk in. And like last year, I sat above a spot for 2 hours waiting for a buck to move. that was never there. He snuck out on us. You know, they're just so sneaky the way they move around, and they cover so much country too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I lost deer in yellow grass.
Yep.
I lost deer in those patches, you know, the ocotillas and all that, dirt patches, because it's almost like it's like they're a chameleon because of the coloration of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to explain, but you know, there was like some bare dirt type patches, and I would, like I said before, I'd run my glass over, and it's like I don't see them unless I am like really, really, really slow. Focusing on every single little thing, but it's usually when they move. But yeah, really, really difficult to glass.
You don't see all the deer your first pass through. It takes hours on those vantage points to figure out what deer are around. And they just hide and disappear so well. You think you're sitting on a master vantage point, and they'll go in the one crook or the one sliver that you can't see, or over a ridge, and then they're gone, even though you can see 10 square miles of desert habitat, and they just disappear on you.
Yeah, well, those little desert folds, I mean, they're deceiving. Well, and they don't have to be very deep because, let's face it, these things are tiny. They're short. And, you know, I was told, like a year like this where it's really wet, the grass was a little bit taller maybe. That may have had a little bit more to do with we were losing them in yellow grass. But they just, unlike a mule deer just stick out. You know, they're just way taller. The coloration, you know, the rump, everything, they just stick out. And they got bigger antlers and bigger ears and all that. But no, these don't. So does were extremely hard to pick out unless they were moving. So it was a lot of fun. I don't know what you run for glass down there, but man, I brought some big boy glass with me this time. I ran some of those 18s, and I've never hunted country really where I thought about 18s. But this wasn't like a backcountry style hunt, so, you know, brought the big ones out, and I mean, that was like the best thing ever, having those 18s on a tripod. So really, really happy that I brought those, but that's kind of what it took. I think a lot of guys will run 15s or whatever, but you kind of need something like that magnification-wise, just to pick out those little subtle things amongst the oak brush. So
yeah, I have. Yeah, so I run my 10s super high quality glass on tripods, and then my scope.
Yeah.
And I glass with buddies with the big glass, and they do really well with it. And then Coulter's got a pair of 15s, and I've used those before. I would like a pair of 15s, but I like the 10s. I could pick out a bunch of those things, and the deal is I could pan through country quicker. And so I ended up catching more deer because I had a wider field of view.
Sure.
So I would catch, you know, more of the deer moving around because I'd get through my pans quicker through there. And it's like every glass power is made for a certain distance. And so up close, it's almost like those high power are too much to really dissect what's right in front of you. But out a little bit further, or like out at the base of the mountain, that's where those 15s or 18s are money, or where those guys would pick out a few more than me. For sure.
And what I did was, you know, I'm like you. Typically, I run 10s or 12s around my neck, and which is what I did over there. So, you know, initially, I'm always pulling the 10s or 12s up and then glassing and using those. But what I did on this one, which was different, was I ditched the scope and just packed the big 18s around.
That's smart. Yeah, I like that.
And got rid of the scope on that. Just seemed like it was a little more comfortable because, you know, you're glassing very slowly and all day long. So looking through the binos versus the scope just seemed to fit a little better. But most all my hunts, I pack 10s or 12s and then run a scope, you know, more high magnification scope. So, like I say,
it's tough to figure out the right system because every different mountain range is different, every different vantage point, all the terrain, like it's all different. Yeah. And I think each place that you hunt specifically calls for the right piece of glass to glass it, you know, to be as efficient as you can be. But you can definitely make do with 10s down there. I pick out a lot of deer with 10s down there. On tripod. I really like to tripod up, and then it's like this exaggerated spot and stock. So I love the process of hunting these deer. And so, you know, I've said it before, but I think each each different species and each new habitat improves your skill set in a different way. And coues deer make me such a better hunter. It's going to make me so much better for next year mule deer season or next year elk season. It just improves your spot and stock game. It improves your glassing game so much. It makes you dial in and tighten up and get all those things right to maybe have a chance to stick an arrow through a coues. And through that process, I just think it improves my hunting skills so much. And I think it's, you know, it's probably had a lot to do with my success the last few years, really, is it just dials in because you really have to find the best vantage points. You can't, I don't think you hunt your way through country with those as good. You just seem to kind of blow them out here and there.
Right.
And you can't, you know, they're not everywhere either. They're not thick. Like, they're spread out throughout that habitat, but you may look over 10 square miles and may see 10 coues deer.
Yeah.
You know, there may be a deer per square mile. In some country, there's no deer. And so you really got to get to those vantage points and just dissect it and really look at your maps and try to figure it out and what gives you the best vantage point, and hiking to that before daylight and then sitting up there for a couple hours. And so, like, I really enjoy that process of hunting them and trying to figure out the vantage points and where they're at. And some days see does and a couple bucks, and like you say, some days you have the right vantage point, you see 13 bucks going everywhere, and you run yourself. I mean, I ran myself ragged trying to keep up with these. My experience was vastly different than yours. I would see these bucks cruising, and then I'd have to go, and I'd go on an adventure for 4 or 5 miles and go try to look where they disappeared and grab a vantage point over there, and I'd relocate them just to see them go up over the next rise, and I'd chase them all day long like that, never really being able to get close or even a close call until day 5 was the first time I got inside of 150 yards on one, even though I was seeing bucks every day.
Yeah, and that's like the reoccurring story that I hear from everyone is you see these bucks and you see them running a ridge, or you know, as soon as you think you might be able to put a stock on, they're gone.
Yep.
And they go over a ridge and then almost impossible to relocate.
Yep.
But, yeah, so I'm curious on your hunt, because I don't know if you told the story, but I want to know how yours panned out and how you ended up making it work. Because mine, like I said, I still feel like I was lucky in that I pinned them down on day 2. I feel like I could go 10 years now and maybe not have that happen. But my strategies in that situation was completely different. On a really, you know, ranging, traveling buck. Mine was get in tight, let them make the mistake, you know, which is something that you would do on a mule deer if you just can't get in tight enough, right? That's kind of the name of the game. Let them stand up, let them come to you. Is the only thing in my mind that made sense to me on something like that. But I'm curious as to your buck. How did that all pan out for you?
Well, you're such a methodical, well thought out bow hunter that have so much experience that you know what you can get away with and what you can't. And so it doesn't surprise me that you capitalized on a great opportunity. But yeah, mine was different. So I went down there with a bunch of confidence this year, and I've killed one really good 100-inch buck, and I passed a lot of smaller bucks. But I really feel like I've paid my dues, and I've learned a bunch of different areas and drainages and vantage points and mountain ranges, and I feel like I've got a lot of experience with those coues, and so I know when to go all in or when to back up. And even hunting my buddy Miguel that's hunted coues deer his whole life, he'll tell you that I'm way too aggressive on these things. But I've got a week to be able to try to get it done, and so for me, I can't sit back on a vantage point all day. Like, I've got to stretch my legs throughout the day too, and so, you know, I would get on these good master vantage points and I'd try to locate bucks, and I saw a lot of bucks cruising. Like, I would average a few bucks every day, but a lot of them, they just wouldn't give me opportunities. They'd end up disappearing, and so I'd be watching for a couple hours, I'd find a buck, I wouldn't take my eyes off him, and all of a sudden he'd go over the top of the mountain. And so now he's disappeared in a bowl or a basin, and so now it's middle of the day, I can either sit on the vantage point, but I've seen dang near every coues around there, now I've got to change. So I either go to a different vantage point, or I go try to relocate that good buck I saw go over the top.
Right.
And so then I'd spend the day going after that good buck, and I'd get back there, and like I say, sometimes I'd find him, sometimes I wouldn't, but I just couldn't get an opportunity. Every time I'd see a buck, he'd be chasing a doe, he was off and over, he was moving country, like I just couldn't catch up to him. And I was hunting, you know, I think you've got, like, the more open the terrain, the better chance of killing those things, because you can keep track of them. They don't disappear in all the brush. And so, you know, I was hunting fairly open terrain, so I was just having that happen where I just couldn't quite catch up to him. And then finally,
and without a doe to slow them down, I mean, how do you? Because they're rutting. They're never going to stop, right?
Yeah, and even a doe sometimes, they just chase her where you can't see. But I was starting to get closer and closer and really get in the groove of hunting him, getting in the groove of finding them in my glass, getting in the groove of finding them before they saw me if I was approaching, and I was starting to get closer on does and bucks. I saw 2 bucks come to this one spot, and I tried to cut one off, and he ended up going back the way he came, but they kind of disappeared back in this drainage. And so I went back in there, and I sat in there for 3 hours glassing that drainage, and then finally I turn up this buck again, and he's rutting this doe, and it's like, right on, okay, he's right in this timber patch. And what you're looking for is just like your scenario, like them to pin down that doe, and then they stay still trying to guard that doe. And so I started making a play on that buck, and then just sure enough, the doe's back on her feet and up over the top of that ridge. And it's like, so I just couldn't catch up, but I was putting on good miles, and I was getting closer and closer. I had a good close call the last day. Logan was with me on a really nice 100-inch 3-point, had an extra little like drop tine on, just a really nice old mature coues.
Right.
And he had pinned down a doe and Gardner versus a 2-point. And I tried to work around him, and right as I was getting around, perfect wind that day, perfect spot coming over the ridge, he got up and chased that doe, and he actually ran by Logan at about 20 yards where he was trying to video from the knob. It was just like typical, but we never spooked him. He went in the next drainage, so then we spent the day looking for him. An hour later, we turn him up again, and up over the top he goes again, chasing that doe. And so it was just running me ragged trying to catch up to him, and any opportunity that I saw or any chance where I'd see a really good 100-inch shooter buck, or I was looking for like a good mainframe 2 mature buck, and anytime I'd see one disappear or go in a spot, I try to get a better vantage. So I just kept playing the game, and I located a buck this one night, and it was my closest opportunity before I arrowed one, and it was a really cool stock. So you have to be at the top of your game to move in on these things. But I located, he was a 4x5, really tall tined, really heavy. And Miguel saw him and thought he was a 110-inch coues. He was a really nice buck. And so I located this buck, and it was the scenario I was looking for. He had a doe pinned down, and there was 2 other 2-points that were trying to get in there and rut that doe, and he was guarding against him. And so now after just being seconds behind the buck, the night before, the day before Logan, now I'm moving, and so I move quick and I get over to him. And my approach, the way the wind is and everything, I have to approach on the side of the canyon that they're looking across at. And so I'm in the open, but there's enough brush around and enough stuff. And I love stalking when you can keep your eyes on the animals you're chasing, kind of like you did on yours as you're moving in slow and you're creeping down the hill with your bow on your lap.
Because you can see when they're paying attention, when they're looking at you.
Read their mannerisms.
You just know exactly how fast you can go and when they're actually at attention.
Yep, when they're down, when their head's down feeding, or when they're up looking for danger. And so that's what I was able to do, is even though they're the wiliest animal and one of the toughest to get in close to, I just kept my eyes on them and kept getting brush in between me and them. And pretty soon I found myself into bow range. And now, like, I can either sneak through the brush, but it's real noisy, or I can just kind of walk along the brush in open sight of these deer, but wait for their heads to be down and move ultra slow. And just let my camo work for me. And so I just kept creeping in, and pretty soon I found myself in range of the 2 does, but the buck's about another 20, 30 yards, just chasing these other bucks and looking down at the doe. And so I'm in bow range for a half an hour, and finally he comes down to rut one of these does, and he comes down to rut her. I get a good range on him, and he's broadside, but I'm trying to track the 2 points, this buck, the doe that's in heat, and then there's 3 other does there, and I'm trying to track all their heads, and I lose focus for just a minute. So he chases this doe, he's broadside, I got a good range, and I go to draw on him, he's not looking at me, and the doe that he was chasing, I couldn't see in the brush, and she must have been staring right in my direction, and she bolted and took him with him. I was just like, I'd waited and worked so hard for that opportunity, but I just lost that focus, like right in that end, right in that draw, and none of those deer knew I was there. I could have just sat there and waited, but I lost track of that one doe looking at the buck, went to draw, and got busted. And then, but I knew it was going to come together. I just had to keep hunting, and I was kind of open-ended on time, and I had my mind set. I was going to arrow a coues deer this year. Like I said, I paid my dues. I've hunted these things.
So
like
how many years have you chased these?
So I think this is my 5th year chasing them.
Yeah.
Yep. So I've got 2 deer in 5 years of chasing them.
So you got the bug early.
Yep. And yep. And my buddies have killed a couple of them. And gosh, I've had some close calls. But I just feel like I finally got it figured out where I've got them dialed in. And they're extremely tough. And I'm hooked on it. And the cool thing is, I think that hunting is some of the coolest hunting going, and the world just hasn't caught on.
Yeah.
I think it's some of the funnest hunting out there in that desert terrain and tracking those things down and the ultimate challenge. I mean, they're action all day long. Like,
yeah,
and
that's why I think you and I are so excited about it and talking about it so much. It's like it doesn't seem like it's getting the respect that it deserves, and the animal itself doesn't, just because I don't know why, but they're so dang hard. And being able to chase them in the rut like this with a bow and still struggle. I mean, a rutting deer, is always a little bit easier, I would say, but not necessarily on these guys, because they're just so small and they're so, they're just moving around so much and they're so wary. And
they're so evolved to that desert habitat, too. They just don't seem like a whitetail. They live in the mountains. They live in extreme desert terrain. They blend in perfectly, but they've evolved through tens of thousands of years to be perfectly adapted to that desert environment and small. And so they're just dialed down there, and wiry. And like you say, they're everywhere through that terrain, from the valley floor to the mountaintops, but they're so tough to kill, And so I love the challenge. And once you start hunting them and you gain respect for them, you get hooked on it. So I really think it's some of the coolest hunting going that the guys just haven't found out or done or tried, but it's so fun. And so then
it probably is a little intimidating for some, just
I think so.
hearing the challenge of it, and really, really low percentage of kill, I think, every year. I don't know what the numbers are exactly, but it sounds like it's pretty low.
Yep, and you have to go for the experience.
Yeah, exactly.
And but yeah, and then I finally, that next morning, I knew it'd come together. I hooked up with my buddy Miguel, which just added to the whole experience. So he's born and raised in Nogales. He works as Border Patrol, and he looked me up last year, and we've been in touch ever since. He's just a great guy and a great hunter. He's killed 8 bucks in a row over 100 inches with his bow.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, he is the coues master.
Master.
So I just pick that guy's brain on coues deer hunting every chance I get. A lot of the information I have comes from him, but he took the next day off so we could hunt together a day. And so he took a day off to hunt with me, and he's just all for trying to help me out to try to kill one of these. I also had another buddy, Coulter, come down, help me glass. Logan came down and helped me glass. So I had some buddies, coming in and out, and I just had a blast down there sharing the experience with them and hiking around the desert. But yeah, I hooked up with Miguel. This guy was so inviting. Like, he had me stay at his house there and eat with his family, and he'd get together with his friends out there, he's just a great guy, and he really knows his country. So he took me to a spot in the morning, glassed it up, a bunch of does around. We saw a couple bucks. He talked me out of chasing them. Of course, I wanted to go over the hill and go see where they went, and he's always got to hold me back, but I'm always just trying to create an opportunity or trying to relocate him and trying to make something happen. And I always have visions. I see a 100-inch buck go over the ridge. I always have visions that he's got this doe pinned down over there, and he's just in the perfect place, and I didn't put the effort to go find him. And it just kills me,
Well, it's just because the value of every little opportunity.
Yep.
I mean, you've hunted long enough to know that all it takes is one little opportunity, and so you don't want to let one slide. I can see that.
Yep. And then, we just caught this buck off the vantage point. He was a mainframe too. I looked at him and thought, I'd shoot that buck every day. I try to pass up on forkies. I'm looking for mature bucks. And I'll have to show you the skull upstairs. He's actually an older buck. I think he's 4 or 5 or so. But just a nice mainframe chocolate horn coues deer, that looked good to me. And he was cruising right by the vantage point. And I was able to just make a quick move down on him, put myself in range. It all happened pretty quick. But, there's such a small target. I keep going through these visualizations, and I just, those opportunities are so fleeting to be able to, to get an arrow into a good coues or good mule deer or whatever it is. And so I practiced a lot coming into this hunt, and I figured it may be a long shot, and it, may be my only chance, small target, but I sat on my shot and just absolutely pinwheeled that thing. The shot wasn't even, it was, 49 yards is where the shot was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and just put an absolute perfect arrow into him. Miguel got to watch the whole thing go down. And so
cool.
Yeah, he went in the valley in there, and actually saw another buck kick out of the valley there. But yeah, it crushed him. I was just so happy, to get it to work that hard at something, and just looking for an opportunity to get it done, and then to have Miguel there to share in it. So we took care of the buck, went home. Miguel's garage door had busted the night before, so I helped him fix that. We worked on that a little bit, and then he said, well, let's go back out. I still got a tag, and I was going to hang out and have dinner with him that night and then drive home the next morning.
Sure.
And so we went out that night. Miguel has hunted dang near every day in January. He's got one stock. Like, he just waits for the right opportunity, the right buck. And like I say, he looks for the big ones, and he knew where this buck had been hanging out. And so we went into this area and hit the vantage point, and I picked out the buck down below us, and he was rutting a doe down there. Just a giant coues. I think it scored 106, but just heavy, dark chocolate horns rutting that doe down there. And Miguel knew it was all in. He didn't hesitate 1 minute. He says, okay, I'm going, and off he went and got a tree in between him and that deer and moved down, capitalized on the opportunity, made his shot, and I watched that deer tip over down there after he shot it. And so we killed 2 coues in one day, 2 mature bucks.
That's interesting. So he's looking for the same, kind of like that perfect scenario. He's not doing a whole lot of stocks. No. He's looking for the ideal situation.
That's what he's looking for.
Yeah.
He sees a lot of big bucks, and it's interesting to hunt with them. So like you relocated that buck, a lot of these bucks I see, I'll see him one day, and then I won't see him for a couple days. Like
really?
Even looking over 10 square miles. But Miguel, like, he believes in their home range, and so once he sees a good buck and he knows he's in that area, he just keeps going back. And then eventually 3, 4, 5 days later, he'll pick up this deer, and he thinks they kind of have like a circuit, like elk, that they kind of work and they travel through and they move through, and then they're back in that country where he saw them.
And that's kind of like typical for most whitetail, right? Kind of a smaller range, although they'll do some traveling for the rut. But that's interesting because I found, like that buck I told you about the first day I found him the second day. I found him the third day in that same valley. And then it was like day 6. We picked him up again.
Yes, okay.
Rutting a doe. He would move, and, if he didn't spend a lot of time glassing that drainage, you'd think maybe he'd left. But he was there. I can't say, I guess it was like half mile from the first place I saw him. Another time he's a half mile over here, but still somewhat in the same general area. And it was just that one nice big buck. And it was in a drainage that it had cover, it had everything that it makes sense to grow an old buck that just never, gets killed. I mean, they can grow old and die in there. It just felt like that kind of a spot. So that's interesting that he goes on that as well, assuming they have kind of somewhat of a range and they don't just bomb 10 miles like a rutting mule deer.
Exactly. Well, that 110 incher that I about shot, I spotted him 2 days earlier with Miguel, and we saw him, and he went rutting over the top, and we lost him. I glassed the whole next day in that area, and you can see so much country. And I think my buddy Coulter came down, helped me glass this whole area, and we saw some bucks and things. Never saw that buck. And then the next day, didn't see him in the morning, and then in the evening, picked him out, like you say, a half mile down the drainage on that face, living in that same home range. It was that same really tall 110-inch coues. But, they have a home range and a circuit of country, and so you may not see him the next day, but, the day after that, in that spot where I saw 13 bucks, I kept going back to that spot and picking out some of those bucks that I had seen. Now, I never saw 13 in the day. That day was fairly crazy, but I'd see, like, the one with the dropper. I'd seen him before, and so you kind of see the same bucks in there. But
yeah, and I had kind of come up with this theory because, we were picking up some of the more mature, larger bucks in there that, the bigger bucks, those mature bucks, they just don't need to travel. Like, we saw some smaller bucks just cruising country. But I'm just thinking, if there's 4 or 5 does or 6, 10 does in this one drainage, why does that big buck need to, cruise and just hit a ridge and take off? So it almost seems like maybe some of the less mature bucks, maybe a couple 3-year-olds, are doing more of the traveling versus the older bucks are going to have more of a tighter home range where they just don't need to. They've got those does to themselves, and they're not really worried about, unless there's another big buck in the area, of course. But
well, and, every terrain, every piece of habitat is different, But, yeah, I think, that's a lot of my theory when I'm hunting mule deer is I find a drainage that holds 20, 30 does, and I look over that drainage really hard, and bucks just show up in there.
Yeah.
And same thing with those coues. When you find a drainage that's holding 10, 15 does, that buck can just live in that drainage or in that area. Now, I see him travel quite a bit.
Do you?
But it's just big desert habitat, and it's all different. Every mountain range is different. Every piece of country is different. Populations are different. But I see him travel quite a bit, but still holding that home range. Like I said, I found that buck a half a mile away or whatever.
Well, it's exciting to me because I got so much to learn. Like I said, I think I was down there for 7 days, and I learned just a whole host of things, with watching them, their mannerisms and just how they behave. But it's going to be years in the making of trying to figure out how these deer, how to be consistently successful on these deer. I think that's going to be the ultimate goal, is to how do you become so successful and consistent versus getting handed something like I got handed to me this year.
Consistently successful on mature bucks is a true feat, and me and you both love to embrace the challenge, and it's such a great challenge for January. But I've just absolutely fallen in love with it. They are so fun to hunt, and it makes me so happy that another backcountry hunter has found coues deer, and you didn't come back and say, "Oh yeah, I killed a big one. I'm back to mule deer," because we'll always love to hunt mule deer. But I'm just it makes me so happy that you're as hooked on it as I am, because I really think it's the coolest, most undiscovered hunt, and I think I did the whole hunt for $700-800, something like that, with gas and with my tag and with food. And
I think that was my main cost, was the drive down.
Yep.
It was just that. It's very affordable type hunt. It's not something you're going to spend thousands of dollars on or anything like that. But no, I think I never really assumed I'd hunt whitetail too often because I'm such a mule deer nut. But whitetail that live in the mountains like that, it's a different story.
They're different species, aren't they?
Yeah, they're up top.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. No,
but I'm curious, like, say, what if you would have seen, because, with this tag, you can chase muleys, you can chase coues. What if you would have looked down in one of those flats and seen like a 170-inch buck running around? What do you think you would have done? You think you would have stayed on the coues?
170-inch buck is a pretty good buck, and I am an opportunist. But, yeah, I get really hooked and tied into those coues where I'm not even looking for mule deer. I'm not even looking or hunting for them. I'm looking at coues mountain ranges. Like, I just get so much great opportunity to hunt giant mule deer that, I kind of go down there for the different species and the different habitat and soaking in the sun. So I don't – this year I wanted to hunt muleys a little bit on my way down, but I couldn't help myself. The coues are so action-packed down there and so fun, thrilling to hunt a new species. And so I'm just hooked on it where I go down there and focus on that. I have so much great opportunity to hunt muleys. And so for me, I'm just hooked on those coues deer. When I start heading down, that is the only thing on my mind, is trying to arrow a good coues. Now, if I did see 170-inch down in the valley, you're probably going to see me making a play for it or
Bet
a stalk
it under
on
a little piece of rim rock.
Yeah, right. I probably can't help myself. You'd have to take away my bow. But I really go down there focused on coues, trying to kill a coues, not even thinking about mule deer or looking for them.
I had that conversation with myself on the way down, knowing that that tag would go either way. Hearing about some pretty good mule deer in that general area down there as well, I kind of told myself, just focus on the unique, focus on the coues. It's something you want to learn. You and I both chased mule deer in various places, and that is awesome. It's probably always going to be my favorite hunt is chasing mule deer in the high country.
Yep.
But with opportunity at a unique animal like that coues, it's just I wanted to make sure I wasn't lured away down to those lower lands with those giant bucks, muley bucks. But
good for you. Well, and I think that's an experience that we all need to embark on too. We just need more time down there. Those desert muleys would be really fun too.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's a unique opportunity. And in January when they're rutting, it's like you got this chance to hunt the very best units in the world for coues deer. I mean, there's world-class coues down there.
Yeah.
And you get an opportunity to hunt them during the very best season. Rifle guys would wait years, 5-10 years for a tag like we get to go experience with our bow every single year. That's why I think it's the coolest thing going that's so undiscovered down there, that so I really like going down there and chasing those things around. It just makes me so happy that you had the same experience and fell in love with it like I did.
Yeah.
But they're going to be fun for years to come to go down there and chase around.
I'm curious on your setup. Did you change anything on your setup hunting, like going from mule deer to coues? As far as arrow weight, anything like that, broadhead, anything?
I didn't mess with it too much. I found the most aerodynamic arrow, or the most the least amount of wind drift on it. So I shot a 2-blade expandable broadhead that just doesn't capture any wind drift. It's
Gotcha.
like my long-range broadhead. It opens up to 1 5/8 cutting diameter. I just know how tough they are to get close to down there. Now, I'm always looking to get close and kill them, and I'm not looking to fire long Hail Marys or anything like that. But, I mean, I really practiced at my longer ranges thinking my only chance might come at 60 or 70 yards at one of these mature bucks. And sometimes the whole hunt comes down to that, and you get one chance at them standing there. And if you've shot that shot 1,000 times, you're willing to make. So I kind of shoot like that 2-blade expandable broadhead that seems to catch less wind drift, but I really didn't change up my arrow setup. I shoot about 450 grains.
Gotcha.
I like that it's quiet. I don't want a lot of noise. And I just spent a lot of time making sure my bow was all dialed and my shooting was all dialed, and went down there with just a ton of confidence, knowing if I got a sliver of an opportunity, I was going to put a good arrow in them.
Right. Yeah, I was a little worried about, I run a little heavier arrow. I think mine's a little over 500 grains, and I wasn't sure, I've heard just how fast these things can jump the string and yada yada. So I was a little worried about that, but I stuck with the same setup that I ran for deer, for elk, and I used it with this, and it just worked fine.
Yep.
Obviously mine was a lot closer shot, but I've always been curious if guys run a lighter, more of a speed arrow for these little guys, or
it wouldn't be a bad idea, and you've got time leading up to it. You don't need a heavy arrow to get the penetration in them. So picking up a little speed, I just don't think 10 feet per second is going to make or break you, And I heard, reading Chuck Adams' book when I was a kid, and it talked about all the different game species, the 28 in North America, and he talked about coues deer. And I remember reading that, and I think that's what planted the seed in my mind of wanting to hunt them. And he talked about how challenging they were. And he also talked about how they jumped his string. And so he thought that they jumped his string when they were closer. So the way he started killing them was actually to take farther shots, the 40, 50, 60-yard shots. It's how he finally started killing those coues,
That's
that they jump at less. Now, I have had really good luck on coues as far as jumping the string. I haven't had any of them jump the string.
Right.
Yep, where, I've had mule deer jump my string and axis. They're a widely switched on deer, but they don't seem to get out of the way of my arrow too much. So that's been good. I mean, that's always my worst fear, is that you do everything right and get your chance and execute your shot and he gets out of the way of the arrow. There's nothing more frustrating, and I think that could happen. But I've had pretty good luck with just my everyday hunting setup that I use for mule deer and elk, and
Gotcha.
taking that out there.
Huh. Yeah. I've been fascinated with hearing people's thoughts on that, just because they are such a small target. I mean, they're tiny. That little zone, the vitals they're just so small that I was wondering if that's kind of a something that more guys that have had a lot of experience chasing coues, if they're going with a speed arrow or whatever. But that's interesting on a longer shot versus a shorter shot. Maybe just not hearing the shot go off at 60 versus a 25-yard shot. They're jumping at the sound.
Yeah, that's what Chuck Adams was saying, and I always like to get close and kill him. And what you did to sneak within 20 yards of that deer and have it all work out, that is so awesome. That's what you're looking to do, and I'm always looking to get close and kill him, but that terrain is so tough to get close to those deer. It's so noisy. They're so switched on, and there isn't a bunch of cover. And so a lot of times you get stuck watching from 80, 100 yards out and just letting things, happen in front of you and hoping it works out.
Yep.
But yeah, a lot of the shots over the years, my opportunities, I've gotten close shots. I think the first one, the big buck I killed, was 60 yards. but I had one of the satellites come by me at 20 yards and passed on him because I was right on that buck that was bedded at 60. Same scenario, guarding a doe from that other buck.
Yeah.
And when he stood up, I put a good arrow in him at 60. But, gosh, I missed one year at like 35 yards. Yep. I think I shot right in front of him or something. It happened pretty quick, and he was chasing a doe. I think I got a quartering away shot, and I think I slid it right by his shoulder right there. Just missed my spot by a couple inches. They're so small. They're like shooting at a coyote.
Oh, man.
But I really focus on my accuracy leading up to the hunt and making sure my shooting is absolutely dialed, and then make sure I execute when the coues deer gives me a chance.
Yeah, I think the size and all the people talking about them. I shot a lot going into that hunt.
Good for you.
I didn't have a lot of lead time, knowing about that hunt. I was invited down, but man, I took every opportunity to really dial it in, just not wanting to get an opportunity down there because I know they're so rare and blow it. So I spent a lot of time just shooting off my deck, and like now, we've got wind about every day where we are, so that's kind of nice, actually, learning how the wind works.
Isn't it crazy how much the wind will drift an arrow at different yardages? It's an amazing learning curve, and even just a small thermal wind of just 3 to 5 miles an hour, you can hardly even feel at night how much that'll drift your arrow.
Yeah, those longer shots, it's a difference. It's a big difference. So, no, it's kind of I see it as a big bonus, and it's funny because I got like off my back or my front porch. It's kind of covered, like the wind isn't hitting me, but as soon as my arrow gets off to the side of the house, and then I've got 2 targets down in the grass, it hits that wind at that point. And it's like shocking what it does to it sometimes.
That's what I do too, is I shoot out of my garage. So I don't I do practice holding in the wind, but I don't like to shoot every day holding in the wind, because what happens is your pin floats off the target back on, and it kind of forces you to make the shot go quicker. And teaches target panic as you're trying to make it go when it's on the target. So I do the same thing, as I shoot inside my garage so the wind doesn't blow my bow around, but I can see the effect on the arrow.
Exactly.
Yeah. But man, it's so cool. Well, I'm so pumped that you're as hooked on coues deer as I am. So we'll have to share a camp and share a vantage point down there here one of these years, as I'm sure you're going to be back down. And man, congratulations! What a feat to kill a giant 100-inch coues on your first trip down. But I have to say that I'm not surprised. You have so much bow hunting skill.
I was very surprised.
Well, congratulations. That's a heck of a deer. I really want to see it in person.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Brian. Thanks for having me on here. And congrats to you, too. I mean, I saw your buck, and what a trip you had, hunting down there with Miguel. And what a benefit having a guy like that you can pick his brain and just, shave so much off that learning curve, I'm sure. So.
I've learned so much from him. Yeah, he's a great coues deer hunter. But I enjoy the process. So I'll be back down there next year, I'm sure. So thanks so much, Ryan. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks.
All right. That's a wrap. So, are you guys planning your coues trip for next year? I know I am. Those things are just a riot to hunt. But you can hear how excited me and Ryan are. Like you say, we're so similar. Every time I get together with them and get chatting, we have so much in common. But that guy, he's just an awesome hunter. Oh, and make sure to check out, Ryan has his own podcast, Hunt Harvest Health, and he does it with his wife, Hillary. And Hillary's a doctor. She's super intelligent. There's tons of great information on their podcast. So I think we were doing this as a joint release. So he's going to release it on his side. I'm going to release it on my side. But make sure to check him out and show him some support. If you see a post on Instagram, make sure to comment on it if you like the podcast, because I really like getting Ryan on here for some recordings. The guy's just a wealth of knowledge, and he's everything, he motivates me, and he does everything the right way. Like, he listens to this podcast as well, but he's just practicing all the methods to make himself a better human and a better hunter. He'd working to be in good shape, working to be the best shot he can, working on his research, studying on places. And then when he gets on a hunt, he's totally focused, puts all his energy into it. He's a real patient hunter, but he's super skilled, and he's just got those nuances dialed. And like I say, one of the best public land hunters out there. And so I love getting together with him and being able to compare notes, and to be able to press record and share it with you guys. I've been pumped to release this one for a while. I just love these conversations I have with that guy. But yeah, he's an awesome hunter, an awesome human being. So thanks again to Ryan for being on. And with that, this podcast is brought to you by Taito Knives. So Taito Knives, they're ultra lightweight, ultra sharp. They're replaceable blade knife. They also have their fillet knives that are good for butchering. They're just the best knives made. I love it when, too, you can get bright colors so you don't leave it behind on the ground. You're always setting your knife down when you're butchering, because you'll cut off a quarter and then you got to set your knife down to pick it up and put it in the bag. And it's really easy to lose place of your knife. When I was younger, I left a few things at a few kill sites. Yeah, I don't think much, but I think I lost a knife or two. I can't remember any specifics, but I know now I always do this double, triple check wherever I'm at, wherever that animal's at. So I'll have to think about if I can remember any situations where I left anything behind and share it on that Eastmans 150, the I'm an Idiot podcast. So it should be a fun one, but yeah, great podcast with Ryan. Thanks to Taito Knives for the sponsorship. Over there at Eastman's, like I say, we're getting ready to do this 150. Should be a great time on there and some good laughs. And yeah, we're sitting on some really good recordings and lining up some more. And so I'm just I'm in the process, or I live the lifestyle of trying to become better, and it's just sharing it with you guys. So I am so pumped. I mean, for a blue collar average guy like me to get to go to New Zealand is insane, and I leave here in less than a month. So it's been it's been well below zero every single day for like the last 30 days. It's been snowing and blowing like crazy. Running's tougher. You're just 2 feet of snow out there trying to push 2 feet of snow. I've been skiing a lot, but just making sure I get in that work day in, day out. I'm shooting my bow. I'm working on my bow. I'm getting in my runs. Any free time I have, I'm looking at maps and units and planning hunts and going through my gear, looking at any improvements I can make. I want to be the complete package this season, and a big part of it for me too is making sure I have the time and making sure I'm not under the stress of a huge project while I'm trying to do it. Now, we all need to work, we all need to pay bills, but I'm gonna make sure I get this time set aside where I'm gonna go chase my dreams and my goals and my ambitions. And so yeah, just a ton of motivation on my side. I'm just putting in the work. I want to be as good as I can be, and I really want to have the best season I've ever had in 2019. So I'm setting up myself, setting up my life for it, and it's just sharing it with you guys. So super pumped. Gosh, I watched a great documentary the other night, this Free Solo, and it just reiterates like having passion in your life and how much passion that guy has, that he's willing to put his life on the line. But that Free Solo up El Capitan, what a great documentary. That was a super one. I think I told you guys, but I also watched that documentary. It's a guy in Bozeman. Jimmy Chin did it, which is the same guy that put together the Free Solo film. But Muro, was that Muro? I think that was a great documentary. And then I watched another one last night, the Dawn Wall, with gosh, I just read his book too. Oh man, he was in Free Solo. Tommy, God, I'm just drawing a blank. But anyways, it's a great Tommy Caldwell, that's his name. Yeah, I just read his book too. It was a great one. But yeah, I can just relate and find a bunch of motivations from those documentaries and from climbers, and that people that just live a passionate life. Like we're meant to have these things that we're super excited about, and then to be able to dedicate not your entire life, but to dedicate a lot of your time into it. Which is pretty much my entire life. Family's always the most important, and you need to work and need to pay bills. But what I love to do is to be in the mountains chasing game, And it's just it feels like where I'm meant to be, where I'm at my happiest. And I love trying to like solve those problems too. I love how challenging it is, and then trying to solve the equation and adapt on the fly. And I got a great podcast coming up with David Brinker, and I don't want to ruin it, but he just talks about how creative hunters are. And you have to have this outside the box approach when you're thinking of areas you're going to hunt, when you're adapting on the fly on a hunt. Like there's all these challenges, and it's just so difficult to find that success. So when you do find it, it means so much to you, especially because you put so much work into it. So I'm just loving life here in Montana. Hopefully it's going to get a little bit warmer here, but I'm rambling on. Great podcast with Ryan. Thanks to him. Thanks to Taito Knives, and thanks to you guys for all the support. The iTunes subscribing and leaving reviews really helps me out. And the Instagram, being able to engage with you guys there and give you support through Instagram. It's just great to hear these stories of you guys being successful and, implementing what you've heard here on the podcast. And really, it's up to you guys. You guys are the ones that are dedicating yourself, putting in the work, getting better, and then you see success from it. But it's fun to have a small piece of that through the podcast, and you guys share it with me. It's been fun at these shows to run into you guys. But yeah, just really appreciate all the support, you guys. Have a good week, and check in with you next week.